recognizing that the American people asked for all these things that we're going to be doing. What are the Democrats doing? They're all going to vote no. Every Democrat will vote no on this budget. Now, they're not going to go to the American people and be truthful and say why they're voting no. They want Washington to keep more of your money so that you don't get that money back. They want a multi-trillion-dollar tax increase. They said it during the campaign and they lost, but they still want that tax increase, so they will all vote no. They don't want a secure border. They said it for the last 4 years. They still haven't accepted the results of the election. So what do if they can't deal with the truth? They've got to lie. Just listen to what you've been hearing the last couple of days. Some of you have even been reporting it. I'm going through the budget. This is the House Republican budget that was passed unanimously by Republicans. Every Democrat voted no. Go through this entire bill. Do you know that for every Democrat talking point where they talk about the horrible things that this budget's going to do, they talk about Medicaid cuts. Everybody's going to be thrown, according to Democrats, into all these horrible situations. There's only one problem. The word Medicaid is not even in this bill. This bill doesn't even mention the word Medicaid a single time, and yet all Democrats are doing is lying about what's in the budget because they don't want to talk about the truth of what we're voting to start. We're voting to start a process. This doesn't end the process. This allows 11 committees in Congress to go an open view on C-SPAN, to have hearings in March where you can all watch, you can all hear the debate, you can watch the amendments fly back and forth, where we're going to be debating how government can work better for the people of this country, how we will deliver as Republicans on the promises that were made and the mandate was given by the voters in November. And Democrats are against all of that. And so instead of just sitting back and licking their wounds that they're completely out of touch with the American people, their only choice is to resort to lying about what's in this vote today. There is no Medicaid in this bill. There are no Medicaid cuts in this bill, yet that's all they're saying. They're talking about millionaires and billionaires. Now they're just talking about Elon Musk. Democrats are so infatuated with Elon Musk that they will vote against low tax rates for hardworking middle-class families. Do you know that the last time we checked, Elon Musk does not work for tips? But you know who does? Millions of hardworking Americans that will get the no tax on tips promise that President Trump made that we will deliver on, starting with the passage of this budget. Millions of Americans will benefit from that provision that we're going to add into our reconciliation bill. Do you know the average pay for a tip worker in America? The average pay is $32,000. And we will be helping millions of those families who average $32,000 so that they don't have to pay tax on tips, or they don't have to have the 87,000 new IRS agents that Biden added going after them, trying to get them to pay thousands more in taxes when all they're trying to do is put food on the table for their families, working 2 or 3 jobs. Again, that's not Elon Musk we're talking about. That's millions of families who average $32,000 a year that Democrats will be voting against helping. They will be voting Democrats against helping millions of small businesses in America. Over 130 million families in America will see their individual tax rates go up when Democrats hit the red button and vote no on this budget. But House Republicans are committed to defending those families, to standing up for those families, to stopping a tax increase from hitting those families. The corporate rate is already locked in. It's a permanent rate at 21%. So we're not talking about the big multinational corporations. They're lying, talking about millionaires and billionaires, when millionaires and billionaires aren't even 1% of who benefits. 99% of the people that would see a tax increase with a no vote are people that make less than $1 million. Less than $1 million. That's who Democrats want to see a tax increase on. While they lie and use the names of billionaires, they're going to be kicking in the gut the hardworking people of America. We don't want that to happen. That's why we're going to move this budget and start this process and start delivering on the mandate that we were all given. And the man who's been the most patient person I know, listening to everybody who's got every issue. And I know a lot of you are saying, oh, gee whiz, do you have the votes? Are you going to vote? And, I've heard this guy's a no. Every big vote we've taken, and I've been the whip before, I've been the minority whip, majority leader. Every time we've had a big vote on the House floor, we're talking to members all the way up until the moment the vote closes. During the vote, we're talking to members. Go look at every big vote we've had. Today is no different. Sure, we're still talking. We talked to the Speaker and I were in a meeting last night for over an hour talking to a lot of members that had questions. We ended that meeting with every one of them finishing as a yes vote. We still have more conversations to have today, just like we do on any day of any big vote. So we're not going to stop working because millions of people are counting on us to deliver for them the mandate they gave us. Introduce to you the Speaker of the House.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It's a big day in America, big day on Capitol Hill. I'm glad to see full participation by the media and press corps here this morning. A lot going on. I want to thank the leadership team for their extraordinary work and their patience.
We're real. I think some of us are really frustrated with this guy here because this may be the guy who blocks us from getting a stimulus check or whatever you want to call it, $5K, to help out each American who has been screwed over by bad government, bad budgeting. And this is the guy who is going to probably make sure that we don't get those $5,000 checks. So he's losing a lot of support pretty quickly.
Has been going on for quite some time. Prepare us for this day.
But we'll see. Maybe he'll change his mind
this week, and the consequential actions that we'll be taking as a House Republican majority to move this ball forward. We'll talk about it a little bit. I want to thank also Representative Tim Moore, very talented member from North Carolina's 14th district. And if he sounds like he's done this before, he has. He was the Speaker of the House in North Carolina for 10 years. And he's an example of the high caliber of a freshman class, the new members, new House Republicans who have joined us, doing extraordinary work. And he took on the heavy load early on, and the Budget Committee is not an easy assignment, but I thank him for that work, and all of our colleagues, Chairman Jody Arrington, and all the Budget Committee members who've been working so hard. Before we get to that, let me just say, last week marked 1 month of the Trump administration. It's just been a month. It seems like much longer than that because so much has been accomplished. What a difference the last 30 days have made. America, once again, has a real leader in the White House, and you see the effects. He's taking action to make America safer, stronger, and more efficient. And we are delivering on our campaign promises. It was not just the promises of President Trump, it was the promises of House Republicans. And just as we promised, I was on the campaign trail all last year, as you know, went all around the country, and I told them these things would happen. Just as we promised, by using his executive authority and instructing federal agencies to follow the law, illegal border crossings are now down dramatically. You've heard some of the numbers. Illegal alien encounters are down 87%. Known gotaways are down 93%. This is what real leadership looks like. And deportations of violent illegal aliens are well underway, as you know. In other areas, just as we promised, on the world stage, America is showing strength again. We maintain peace through strength. That's a core principle of our party. President Trump understands that. He more than understands it, he acts upon it. Before he even took office, he secured a ceasefire agreement and the return of hostages in Gaza. Colombia quickly reversed. They reversed their course, and they vowed to accept citizens who were in America illegally from that country. Canada and Mexico quickly agreed to bolster their border security. Canada now has a border czar, and they're going to help us make sure that fentanyl doesn't flow over that border. Well, just as we promised, President Trump is making transformational change to the bloated federal bureaucracy.
We know all this.
Every single person understands the government is too big, it does too many things, and it does almost nothing very well.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's going to come in and fix it all. All right. My optimism towards that guy is definitely fading, waning. But I did want to get to some of this awesome book that I've been getting back into, The Wuhan Cover-Up. And if it looks a little weird, that is because my screen is mirroring. There you go. Now it looks normal. The Wuhan Cover-Up. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. Find my footing. A few things. few areas to read. One was really good. Should have been a little more prepared. Sorry. So there are some, there's some things about, I'll read a little bit of this first. This is from chapter 43, page 279 of the Wuhan cover-up here. A detailed description of Dr. Fauci's gain-of-function studies in China. It's pretty crazy how far all of this stuff goes back here. This is what Dr. Fauci said to Senator Rand Paul on May 11th, 2021. I do not have any accounting of what the Chinese may have done, and I'm fully in favor of any further investigation of what went on in China. However, I will repeat again, the NIH, the NIAID categorically has not funded gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute. And we know that that turned out to not be true, and he had to retract that just a little bit. Here's what Kennedy writes. NIAID's and NIH's earliest collaborations with the Chinese government were arguably innocent enough. In 2005, for example, the NIH funded the first publication of Daszak and a Wuhan Institution of Virology lab director, Shi Zhengli. This is the title of what it was. It was called Bats Are Natural Reservoirs of SARS-like Coronavirus. Bats are natural reservoirs of SARS-like coronaviruses. The paper describes the researchers' Herculean efforts to collect novel coronavirus strains from Chinese bats. Among more than 1,000 samples, they were able to isolate one full genome that closely resembled the virus that caused the 2003 SARS outbreak. In 2006, Shi, Lingfa Wang, and Daszak published a second similar article funded by the same NIH and Natural Science Foundation grants. This one was titled Review of Bats and SARS. So there's just a little bit of that. Skipping down a little bit. Building on these papers, Shi and several other WIV researchers in 2008 published another paper that further advanced the science for weaponizing coronaviruses to infect humans. This one was called Difference in Receptor Usage Between Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, SARS, coronavirus, and SARS-like coronavirus of bat origin. It all has to do with the bats. Skip around a little bit. Here's another one on page 285. Here's another one. In May 2014, the HHS's highly publicized lab leaks and the Cambridge Working Group's loud protests amplified the acrimony against gain-of-function experiments in the United States. The NIH defiantly funneled $3.1 million 5-year grant to EcoHealth Alliance, naming its president, Peter Daszak, as principal investigator to conduct studies in collaboration with several researchers in China, including Shi and her colleagues at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The NIH grant, this is the name of the NIH grant, Understanding the Risk of Bat Coronavirus Emergence. There you go. They have more here. I mean, Kennedy just documents all of this stuff of that. Yes, gain of function and the coronavirus, COVID-19 is all related. It's all right there. There's some other good stuff here. I'll read a little bit down here. I believe it starts. And there's this guy named Dr. Barrick who comes up a lot in this here. And it seems like some of his stuff is very telling. Where is it? In his acknowledgments, Barrick offers a telling explanation of how he managed to conduct his experiments in violation of Obama's freeze. So apparently in 2014, Obama put a freeze on these types of testing. That didn't stop Fauci, and that didn't stop stop Dr. Barrick or any of these other people from moving ahead with it. Quote from Dr. Barrick: experiments with the full length and chimeric SHC-014 recombinant viruses were initiated and performed before the gain of function research funding pause, and have since been reviewed and approved for continued study by the NIH. This is what Kennedy writes. This statement was misleading at best. The Obama moratorium included no exemption for pre-funded studies, and neither NIH nor P3CO panel ever made any formal review of Barrick's study, and certainly did not approve its continuation. This is all of them. This is Fauci, and Barrick, and all these people who continued this, and all of this led to what happened in Wuhan. This is Kennedy's argument here. In fact, at the outset of the 24, I already read that. In fact, at the outset of the 2014 moratorium, the NIH sent Barrick a cease and desist order to shutter his ominous project. So he was ordered in 2014 to stop these types of testing. The NIH's chieftain, Fauci most likely, chieftains presumably overruled the president by greenlighting Barrick's experiment at the height of the moratorium. Barrick's experiment attracted NIH's alarming attention in early February of 2020. What a coincidence. The timing. After Dr. Fauci asked his staff to take stock of all NIH-funded experiments at the Wuhan lab. On February 1, Dr. Fauci's top deputy and longtime bagman, Hugh Atzenklotz, flagged Barrick's study for his boss with the alarming comment that, quote, no coronavirus work has gone through the P3 framework. Dr. Fauci's practice of skirting potential orders to promote his gain-of-function scheme suggests that the NIAID director regarded himself as the ultimate arbiter in public health, with discretion even to overrule the president. That was Barack Obama he was overruling, and he continued all that with President Trump. Several years later, on November 30th, 2021, Dr. Fauci smiled with satisfaction when President Biden joked that, quote, I've seen more of Dr. Fauci than I have my wife. We kid each other, but hey, look, who's the real president? Fauci. Read that again. That is on page 290 of the Wuhan cover-up, where and I've never seen this quote. I've never watched any of Biden's press conferences. It was very difficult, but this would have been the one to watch here, where Biden jokes, quote, I've seen more of Dr. Fauci than I have my wife. My kids, we kid each other, but hey, look, who's the real president? Fauci. Of course, President Biden is joking there, but there may be a little truth in some of those jokes. There may be some truth there. We don't know who the real president is, unfortunately. Dr. Fauci has repeatedly demonstrated that he takes such flattery at heart. The pandemic seemed only to amplify that megalomania. In November 2021, Dr. Fauci declared, it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science. That's what Fauci says. That's dangerous. That is dangerous. It's dangerous to think that a guy like that is representing science. I find that very, very strange. All right, skipping on a little bit here to page 291. Barrick and Xi were among 7 co-authors of yet another foundational NIAID-funded gain-of-function study, also published during the moratorium in 2015. Listen to this title. 2 mutations were critical for bat-to-human transmission of Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus. 2 mutations were critical for bat-to-human transmission of Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus, meaning it had to be engineered. It had to be manufactured. It could not normally happen. The virus could not normally spread from bat to human. Couldn't occur normally. And also, a lot of the scientists agree with it. The man who says that he represents science may not agree with it because he has not only a gain of function, he has an invested interest in promoting one theory over the other. So he may represent science, but it may not be the real science. It may not be the real data of what we know. And here's what Kennedy writes. That article unabashedly chronicles their efforts to induce mutations in a coronavirus spike to increase its infectivity to humans. Quote, to evaluate the political genetic change required to infect human cells, we re-engineered a coronavirus spike, aiming to build its capacity to mediate viral entry into human cells. This is what they were doing in Wuhan. This is what Fauci and company and Barrick, this is what they were all doing. Dr. Shi, is they were messing with this stuff, and then all of a sudden a real virus happens, a pandemic, a breakout, and they are not taking any responsibility for it, as we all know. Many people, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. I just find it fascinating, the more that I learn about all of this stuff, because I am writing a book on coronavirus right now, the early days of COVID, about the shelter-in-place order, the lockdowns, and that's just about done. Just about ready to go. So, in doing all the research for that book, finalizing that, I think what I'm doing right now is just going through what I had written back in 2020, and then I'm going to add more stuff like this. I'm going to insert it into this book here. But a fascinating time, just to make sure that some of those early days do not go down the memory hole. Hopefully that will be a good reminder for some people. In March of 2016, also during the moratorium, Ralph Barrick and his UNC research team published, this is the article that they published, SARS-like WIV-CoV poised for human emergence. So I'll stop it right there a little bit. Oh no, this is a good one. Daszak. At a February 2016 forum, Daszak summarized the fruits of his Wuhan lab partnership in words that alone put the lie to Dr. Fauci's sworn testimony that NIAID funded no gain of research at Wuhan. In a speech on emerging infectious diseases and the next pandemic, because remember, they all want the next pandemic, Daszak boasted to his audience that with his help, my colleagues in China had created killer SARS-like coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institution of Virology. Killer. Here's what he says. We found other coronaviruses in bats, a whole host of them. Some of them looked very similar to SARS. So we sequenced the spike protein, the protein that attaches the human cells. Then I didn't do this work, but my colleagues in China did the work. You create pseudoparticles. You insert the spike proteins from those viruses. See if they bind to human cells. At each step of this, you move closer and closer to this virus that could really become pathogenic in people. You end up with a small number of viruses that really do look like killers. And that's on page 291. So good stuff right there. A few other things, but I think I'll stop with the Wuhan stuff right there. I'm on page 335 right now. And this title, can't see it really good here, but the Chinese launched the global cover-up. This is what I'm really curious about, because this is where I really want to start. This is where my book starts. COVID-19, the invisible enemy, shelter in place. And it does start with the earliest of what we knew about the coronavirus, COVID-19. And I love kind of how the way the book is ending with Dr. Erickson, who really opened up my eyes about this coronavirus. Up until that point, I wasn't really sure what was going on. Wasn't really sure if I should think that this is real. Is this fake? Is it somewhere in the middle, which is where the truth usually is? And so, but after listening to Dr. Erickson, who got banned pretty much everywhere for just telling people that the best way to fight this virus is to get out, to not shelter in place, to get out there, that the consequences of the shelter in place will actually be worse, which he was absolutely right. At the time, it made a lot of sense to me. It was new. It was something different. And then reposting his interview of his opinion as a medical doctor got a lot of us a strike. And that video has since gone down the memory hole from YouTube. You find it on Rumble. You can still find it elsewhere. But I may try to put it back on YouTube just to see what happens. And not on this channel. I don't want to risk that right now. But that is, to me, will be a pretty good place where the book will probably end. It's that first year. It's really just covering that first year. And the fact that President Trump got screwed out of the 2020 presidential election, that is really what ended all of this. And then the questioning, any other questioning, it became more difficult and actually kind of radicalized the questioning of it. And so there was some good stuff that came out of that and some bad stuff. But what we know now, and the fact that even books like this can even come out at this point right now, I think is a very good thing. So I just wanted to highlight that. I got the audiobook too. Been listening to that. I listened to a lot last night. I finally had to turn it off because I had to sleep, and it was keeping me up because the information is so good. So you can really think of this book by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., The Wuhan Cover-Up and the Terrifying Bioweapons Arms Race. You can really think of this as an extension of the real Dr. Anthony Fauci book, The Real Fauci. But I think this is a lot better. I really do think this is a lot better. And this is more focused on just the Wuhan stuff. This is more focused on COVID, the coronavirus stuff. But if you enjoyed The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., this continues it. This really continues it, and is actually probably more damning. I found this a lot more damning because it is more recent, and because we know how many people died, maybe not from the coronavirus, but at least with the coronavirus. And that is still something that is going to be hard to say. It's like when people have when they have multiple health issues, right? And sometimes it's hard to tell what did they actually die from. And that's what this really did. What were the contributing factors? And it's hard to argue that COVID was not a contributing factor to a lot of these people with pre-existing health conditions. So we can't just say, well, COVID didn't do it. It seems like it played a big part in these deaths. But then it was those underlying factors, those pre-existing conditions that also contributed to it. The ventilators made it worse. The masks made it worse. Other things, the shelter in place made everything worse. It did not really help. That's what the research is showing. I'm still kind of 50-50 on it. So that is what I wanted to cover there. And I will remirror this back again and maybe go back and play a little bit more of this guy. I don't know. I'm so disappointed with Mike Johnson, especially after he doesn't want to give us 5K. That's my big deal. I'm ditching him over 5,000.
We've got to fix that, and we will. The Doge auditors are doing work that Congress has not been able to do because we could not crack the code. We could not get inside these agencies to get the very important information that we have long needed. But they have found tens of billions in waste, fraud, and abuse, and it's only been a month. That process continues. Just last week, Doge uncovered a $2 billion grant to a Stacey Abrams affiliated group that only had $100 in their bank account, a cheap website, and zero experience in managing energy projects. That was the subject of that grant. Just one glaring example of the enormous misuse of taxpayer dollars. And we're finding that every day. We're learning more and more about what has been hidden from Congress for so long. And this is going to change the way the federal government works and operates. It is truly transformational. Just as we promised, as President Trump works to clean up the mess President Biden has made, congressional Republicans are taking action to do the same. Last week, Leader Scalise released a list of Biden administration rules that House Republicans will roll back through the Congressional Review Act legislation. This week, you're going to see that. You heard a little bit about it. We'll focus on the EPA rule. This EPA rule imposes a significant fee on methane emissions from oil and gas, natural gas facilities. And what the effect of that is that it raises prices and it reduces energy production, domestic energy production. It makes no sense. We'll also roll back a Department of Energy rule which effectively bans certain natural gas water heaters from the market. Democrats, rather bizarrely, chose home appliances as their target of their Green New Deal agenda. And House Republicans will stand up for consumer choice and common sense and overturn this rule. Not only are we taking action to roll back Biden's agenda, we're also working to codify President Trump's agenda. We can't allow a future administration to unwind all of these important reforms. So we're planning to take up our budget resolution as early as today, which is a major step, as you know, to unlock the process in delivering President Trump's America First legislative agenda. We're very close right now. As you just heard the Leader Scalise, explain, there's always more work to do right up to the end for a big vote like this, and this is a big one. We're very, very close, and we're excited about the progress, and I'm very positive, and I'm absolutely convinced we're going to get this done. There's a lot of misinformation about the budget resolution. You've heard some of this being cleaned up this morning. I won't repeat it all, but this resolution itself contains no policies. It is a framework only, and it's the product of months and months of work completed with the input of over 95% of the individual members of the Republican conference. We held dozens of listening sessions. We met with nearly every member of the conference multiple times, and truly this has been a bottom-up approach to the process. So we're proud of the final product, the work product, and again, it's sort of the kickoff in what will be a four-quarter game. And
All right. Well, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I'm still a little disappointed, but we'll see what happens. We'll play a little bit of this.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive.
Who's on the Epstein client list? Dun, dun, dun.
Do you realize, James Carville, that means they shouldn't have listened to you either? I saw you on Fox News. I saw you on CNN. I saw you on your podcast. Where the hell you think I got some of the stuff from?
Trump dividing and conquering the Democrats.
You thought I was finished. I got more.
Plus,
they're extraordinary with computers. They make love to their computer. I said, I don't want to hear about that.
The NCAA
So weird.
has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply.
I want you to look at Kennedy here. You can see Kennedy's kind of in the mid screen in the gray suit. Tulsi Gabbard is right next to him. Watch Kennedy's motions here. He's got two fingers on his right hand, on his right hand. Watch his posturing because it does change during this, which is pretty awesome, pretty awkward, but very telling, I thought.
Because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
So now he's at one finger. Maybe it means nothing, but it's pretty interesting to me. And especially that after this, the HHS decided they're doing some investigating into the governor of Maine and the fact that she is not going to comply with this order, Title IX order. Very interesting stuff here. Very cool. I like it. And there's Pam Bondi right next to Kennedy too. Just they're all watching this. This is nuts. She's right there.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics. Every state has a.
Now Kennedy kind of moved away. He's a little anxious there. I wonder what's going on with that, because Kennedy has been a big champion of this too, keeping men and boys out of women and girls sports and out of their locker room and all that. And the governor of Maine is really going to fight. That's the hill she's going to die on. Yeah, I would not expect her to last too much longer either. But and I'm sure you've heard this before. I'm just going to play what President Trump says here.
Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX. They have an obligation, a legal obligation, and we'll be enforcing aggressively, and be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics. Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX.
You can hear it a little bit that people were laughing in the audience there.
A legal obligation, and we'll be enforcing aggressively, and we're going to be protecting our citizens. We're going to protect. If you went to paper ballots and you're voting. And
so this goes back again to 2020. Now we're back again talking about 2020 because of how bad it was, and how bad and how corrupt the system was against Trump. And it could have been against other people too. And it could have been in favor of other people too. We don't know how far back the voter fraud has gone on. And we can even speculate that it has always gone on. That there's always been some level of voter fraud, and maybe there always will be. But what happened in 2020 was very, very different. They're still trying to tell us Joe Biden got 81 million votes. And the numbers just don't add up. If you look at the number of people that voted in 2020 compared to the number of people that voted in 2024, we're being told that there were actually less people that voted in 2024. That's the numbers that I'm looking at here. And they just finished counting in California like a month ago. Like this should not happen. Single day voting. I'm not in 1 or 2, 3 days. I could see that. But it really should be single day voting, paper ballot only. I'm okay with not mail-in, but the absentee ballot, but you got to have some registration, some type of voter ID. Voter ID is not racist. It's something that will make sure that everything is fair and balanced. And that we have real fair elections in this country. Because if we don't have them in this country, can't expect them to happen in other countries. And that's probably why other countries are not having fair and balanced elections, because we're not having them here. Look at all the stuff that they had to do just to make sure that 2024 was a legitimate election. Look at all the stuff they had to do. All of the early voting helped. That means early voting of people standing in line, not dropping it off into a drop box, and you don't know where that drop box goes. That means making sure that we're not having people who should not be voting vote, that we don't have dead people voting. All of the lessons they learned from 2020, they had 4 years to get it right. And I hope they continue that going forward in 2028, 2032, because J.D. Vance is most likely going to be the next president after President Trump. And that means that a lot of the people that that President Trump has appointed will still be in there, will still be in office. If J.D. Vance loses in 2028, then a lot of the people that are in office right now that President Trump put in there will probably lose their jobs. They'll probably be fired too. So I think Kash Patel, I think he has to be in there for 10 years or something like that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens at that level. I'm very curious. And then the justices, because there may be 1 or 2 other justices that may be retired, or they may pass on too. So lots of things can happen. It was a great victory, but I think everybody celebrated the victory, and now we're getting to work, and we're going to make sure that we keep this country great. Again, now, forever, for always. That will be the goal. All right, let me play a little bit more of Trump. This is good about the voter, about paper ballots. Then I want to get to what Trump is tasking Kennedy to do.
I would hope that every Republican would. So it costs exactly 8% of what the machines cost. These machines, they got something going. They get business. It's amazing. So paper ballots, and paper is very sophisticated today. It's called watermark. It's impossible to copy, impossible to cheat. It's actually hard to believe that a piece of paper is highly sophisticated, but it's watermark, and it's it's amazing actually when you see it. You can't cheat. But if you went to paper ballots and same day voting, and if you went to voter ID, and also one other thing, you want a proof of citizenship, those four things: proof of citizenship, voter ID, paper ballots, one day voting. And if you went to 2-day voting or 3-day voting, but some of these states, you had 64 days. You know, California just finished up just a short while ago. They were voting a week and a half ago. They tried to finish them up. And other states too. They
I
were
think
weeks after the
he
election. I
misspoke. I
mean,
think
that
he
were a
really
close
meant.
election.
I don't think he meant that they were voting. I think he misspoke there. I think he really what they were doing is they were still counting the votes.
They'd have to wait for weeks and weeks.
I'm surprised the media didn't press on that, but the media doesn't want to talk about the voter fraud 2020 anymore. There's a lot of things that happened in the last 4 years that they don't even want to go there. In the last 5 years, starting in 2020, I would say.
Weeks and weeks. You got finished fast, Brian. Thank you for your help. We did very well in Georgia. It was very nice. But some of these states, if you had a close election, you wouldn't know who won. And then, you know, once that happens, then you really never know who won. But you would save tens of millions of dollars, forgetting about right, wrong, and security, safety, our country, our Constitution, and all of these. Number one, you'd have a much safer election. Number two, everybody, you know the results of your election by 10 o'clock. Everybody, it's a beautiful system. It's boxes of 5,000. Boom, boom. And you can go and examine each box. It's so simple and so good. I did ask Elon, because he knows more about computers than anybody I know. I said, what do you think of the voting system? He said, computers are not meant for voting. It's just not a good, it's too many transactions taking place too quickly. It's just not, he said, honestly, and I've gone to the best people, the smartest computer minds from MIT, from others. My uncle was a professor for 41 years at MIT and a brilliant guy. And I got to know a lot of the people up there. And they will tell you that the most secure way that you can secure the election, and probably the fastest way, because there can be very little hanky-panky, is paper ballots. Can you believe it? So I hope, Sarah, that certainly the Republican governors, but if you want to save a lot of money, you go to paper ballots. It'll cost you 8% of what the costs are now. And that's based on a good deal for machines.
Sounds reasonable.
And then when you go through the days and weeks and months of waiting, France had mail-in ballots. Anytime you have mail-in ballots, you're going to have fraud, without question. And France had it, and they went back to paper ballots. And I saw their election, and their election was over at 9 o'clock, and their numbers came in at 10:05. And there were no complaints. They had a winner, they had a loser, 39 million votes, and it was done. We're one of the only people that has now mail-in voting, one of the only countries that has mail-in voting. Remember Jimmy Carter when he did a commission, and I think they had Scoop Jackson, they had some, at the time, big senators. And their conclusion was, if you have mail-in voting, you're going to have massive fraud. And we had it in New York with the congressional race. Remember the congressional race? It took them forever to like 6 months later, they declared, who was it, Jerry Nadler or somebody? They declared him the winner, 6 months later. But it was somebody. Oh, no, it was the woman, the congressman. I won't mention her name. But she won. But she didn't win, and it was really very sad to see that whole thing. Democrat, that was a Democrat and a Democrat. That was a primary, but they had the mail-in voting. It's just a disaster. So it's very, very expensive. If you want to save money, if you really believe that the computers work, which they don't, but if you want to save a lot of money, all you have to do is go to paper ballots, and you'll be cutting it down by millions and millions of dollars. The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine?
Play that one.
Are you not going to comply with it? Well, we are the federal law.
So we play this. This is good, too. This is good stuff.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. On my first day at work here at HHS, I want to take this moment to say a few words both to my supporters of the Make America Healthy Again movement but also to all of the American public. I could read you a list of statistics proving that Americans suffer far higher levels of chronic disease, obesity, addiction, cancer, infertility, and depression than ever before in history, and more than any other country in the world. You already know that. It's pretty obvious that something has gone terribly wrong with our health. I'm also not going to tell you the reasons for this decline. Why? Because neither I nor anyone else can be certain. But what I will tell you is that we are going to find out and we're going to do something about it. My commitment to you is that we're going to make chronic disease our top priority. In our first 100 days, we're going to examine every possible contributing factor to the epidemic of chronic disease. We will leave no stone unturned. We're going to listen to the experts and to the dissidents. We're going to listen to insiders and to the whistleblowers. We're going to listen to the doctors and we're going to listen to the moms. We will examine our food, our medicine, our water, our lifestyles, and our environment, everything that goes into Americans' bodies. I promise you that I will enter this inquiry with an open mind and a willingness to be wrong. And I ask that you join me in that. That's how we're going to build unity in this age of political division. We have to find something we care about more than being right, more than political advantage, and more than financial profit. The health of our children is a higher calling for all of us. And here's another promise. We're going to usher in a new era of transparency in all of our health agencies. There's going to be no more hidden conflicts of interest, no more secrecy, no more profiteering from the substances that we're supposed to be regulating. We're going to earn the public's trust with honest, unbiased science. After we get clear on the causes of chronic disease, we're going to take action to reverse it. I know that many of you have lost hope. I know that many of you take these chronic conditions as a normal part of life. Oh, it doesn't have to be that way. I know that because it wasn't that way when I was a kid, and it doesn't have to be that way tomorrow. All it takes is to unify our will to get serious about solving this problem. President Trump has made it one of his top priorities, and I promise to do everything in my power to carry it through. And all I need is your help.
Beautiful. Well
Produced by the
stated.
U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Well said. there.
Before COVID, and we did a great job with COVID and it was a hell of a thing for all of us, everybody here. But some countries will actually never recover for what they went through. But we ended up giving back. When we turned over the reins, the stock market was higher than just previous to COVID coming in, which was an amazing achievement. But we were just prior to that. I would never forget. I was sitting down with two consultants, the two great pollsters. They said, "Sir, this economy is so good. We're the greatest economy in the history of the world. We were doubling up China. I was also charging China hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, which no president charged them anything, but they were killing us. But we were beating everybody. Everybody said that in 2018, China was going to overtake us as the biggest economy in the world. And by the time I got finished, we were so much bigger than China, and we still are now. But another 4 years like we had just passed, you will have China being much bigger than you. There's no reason. If we have a smart president, there's no way that they should ever be able to catch us. But this pollster said to me, "Sir, if Abraham Lincoln and George Washington came back from the dead and they ran as president and vice president, they'd never be able to beat you." I said, "Thank you very much." The next day I go into my office and a group of scientists are sitting there. "Sir, would like to tell you there's something very bad happening in China. There's dead bodies all over the place." And that's the first time I heard the word pandemic in a long time. And that's where it started. And you know where they were? All around the Wuhan lab. That's why from day one, I was saying they had little slits like this. You saw them from the air, from space. And they were just little slits, but they were body bags. They were black body bags all over, so many. And that's where it came from. Secretary of Health and Human Services, nobody knows.
So this is a good one, and I'll probably end it with here. Let's Let's see. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, this is good. Here is what Kennedy. What I keep saying, Kennedy. Here's what Trump expects from Kennedy right here. 2 minutes 30 seconds.
Secretary of Health and Human Services. Nobody knows this particular gentleman. He sailed right through. I thought he'd get a lot of, I said, well, he's going to get a lot of Democrat votes, Ron. I said, he's going to be an easy one, right? I told Ron DeSantis, I said, this one's going to be so easy. He's going to get all those Democrat votes. I don't know. You thank goodness for the Republicans, right? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And where is Bobby? Where is Bobby? So congratulations. Was that as easy as you thought? Just quit. Well, in the end, they all voted for him. You did pretty well. You got through. But, we have one stat that I quote, the autism stat. And you hear different numbers, but it's thousands. They say between 10 and 20,000. So if you go back 15 years ago, we had like nobody. It was 1 in 20,000. Now we have 1 in 34. Is that right? 34. So 34 or 36 kids have autism. And if you go back, I guess 18 years, that whenever that was done, it was 1 in 20,000. So we got from 20,000 to 34, 36. That's unbelievable. So there's something wrong. There's something wrong. We've done something wrong. There's something, you're going to figure it out. Maybe it's a spray that we spray all over the place that nobody else does. Other countries don't. The Pennsylvania Dutch, they don't do anything, and they're amazingly healthy. And he understands. He's working with Dr. Oz, who's a really smart guy. I know him very well. And those two guys are going to figure it out. They're also going to figure out why in the United States we pay $1,300 for a drug, one that we were talking about. And in London, they pay, literally, they pay $200, even less. $88, I heard in one case yesterday. They pay $88, we pay $1,300 for the exact same drug from the exact same factory, from the same
Crazy. Unacceptable.
Plant where it's made. We've got to figure that out. So I hope you focus really a lot on the cost too, because Americans are being screwed and it's no good. They're not going to put up with it.
Okay, so that's what I got for that one. And I don't know. I think that's about it. I think that's all I got. Nothing new on Kennedy's. Yeah, nothing new on Kennedy's ex. I'm not seeing anything new there. Last thing he posted here was from February 16th. Northern curly-haired tailed lizard. And he's not talking about Russell Brand. He's talking about right here with Russell Brand and Dr. Oz. So Kennedy and Dr. Oz are going to do some amazing things here. Here was Kennedy on the 14th, Valentine's Day, being officially made it official right there. It's official. And then with President Trump, he's been posting some stuff, but nothing too hair-raising. Dan Bongino, we know he is going to be the deputy FBI director. Will investigate Russiagate. That's awesome. So glad to hear that, because that needs to be done. Can I play this? Is this
Democrats seemingly melting down from the announcement that FBI Director Kash Patel's number 2 at the Bureau would be former Secret Service agent and conservative commentator Dan Bongino.
Our national correspondent Alana Austin reports live on what the new leadership might accomplish. Alana, good morning.
Oh, I probably need to show it.
Hi, good morning, Emma and Sean. And I want to play a clip from Dan Bongino's latest broadcast just yesterday, where he spoke out about deeply entrenched issues that he sees at the Department of Justice, specifically the FBI, and also across the intelligence community.
Folks, I strongly encourage you to go back and take another look today at the Russia collusion hoax. I know it's a story that's old and a lot of people want to move on. I'm going to be straight with you. I don't want to move on. We had the FBI in conjunction with the Department of Justice, officials in Congress, foreign governments, and intel people, fabricate a story, invent a story that could have caused and done serious long-term harm to international relations with a nuclear-powered foe. It's kind of a big freaking deal. I'm not letting it go.
Good.
FBI Director Kash Patel, who was just named acting ATF chief, too, says in part, with Pam Bondi as our new attorney general, we are assembling a team focused on restoring public trust, upholding the rule of law, and ensuring justice is served. Dan is stepping away from an incredibly successful career because he believes in this mission. Together, we are ready to put the mission first. Meantime, congressional Republicans are issuing a series of subpoenas demanding documents that would have happened under the Biden-Harris administration. Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan is requesting records surrounding January 6, 2021, the usage of confidential human sources for the FBI and Department of Justice, as well as the investigation into the J6 pipe bomber who targeted the DNC and RNC headquarters. GOP lawmakers also intend to dig into alleged censorship, pressures by the previous administration against conservatives through big tech, the prosecution of pro-life activists outside abortion clinics, the federal law enforcement presence at local school board meetings, and that leaked Richmond field office memo that labeled traditional Latin Mass Catholics extremists. But Democrats and liberal-leaning media outlets are issuing concerns with Dan Bongino. Here's one clip criticizing his resume and accomplishments.
Oh, look, Trump likes figures right out of central casting, and Bongino fits the bill. He became a big star on Fox News during the first Trump term. He was saying all the things Trump wanted to hear, including denigrating the FBI. You know, he's a macho figure, someone who's out there trying to pick fights and stoke fights. And that's the thing about Bongino. The incentives for television and radio and podcasting are very different than the incentives for government service.
Now, Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut, criticized Dan Bongino as the #2 guy at the FBI, saying it is inconceivable in his mind. Now, Bongino did serve as a Secret Service agent and got his start in law enforcement at the NYPD. But again, there are Democrats saying they do not think he has the credentials for this role.
All right, Alana Austin joining us from the Capitol. Alana, thank you very much.
All right, let me share of this. This looks pretty good. I don't usually share their stuff, but I
Check
do
this
like
out.
Robbie.
I'm going to show you how I.
Cool. So, is it stream? Yeah, it's in there. It's in there. Let's do this. Fine.
Good morning and welcome to Rising. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Tuesday morning and we are happy to be delivering you another fantastic show, I would say. Wouldn't you, Niall?
A terrific Tuesday, Robbie. Another, what's that word? Alliteration was the word that briefly escaped my mind.
Yes.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here to discuss all the matters of the day with you. So why don't you get us started with your radar?
Well, let's get into it. Okay, late last week, Attorney General Pam Bondi made an extremely interesting declaration during an interview on Fox News. She said that she is in possession of the Jeffrey Epstein client list. In fact, it's sitting on her desk right now. She's going to review it, and then she's going to release it. Incredible. Let's watch.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay.
The Epstein client list refers to the theoretical list of people who have associated with the wealthy financier who committed suicide while in prison under suspicious circumstances, to say the least. He was awaiting trial for charges of underage child sex trafficking, having been previously convicted of various sex offenses and required to register as a sex offender. Epstein hobnobbed with societal elites all over the globe, including Prince Andrew of the British royal family, Bill Gates, and political leaders within both parties, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Now, Epstein's modus operandi was to attach himself to other rich and famous people, offer them rides on his jet, nicknamed the Lolita Express, bring them to his island getaway, and ultimately offer them access to women for sex. And some of the women were underage, have come forward to accuse various famous figures, including Prince Andrew, of impropriety. But there could be other Epstein clients who have evaded scrutiny until now. Trump, to his credit, signed an executive order compelling the Attorney General to review and release these files so that the American people can learn what law enforcement already knows. Now, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to wonder whether government actors who handled the Epstein matter have had a hand in concealing damaging information on important public officials. That's in part due to the sensational nature of the Epstein story. This was someone who engaged in routine, flagrant abuse of underage women and got away with it for years. But instead of becoming a pariah, he was welcome among the rich and the famous. Then, when he was eventually charged with sex crimes, he benefited from a sweetheart deal. In 2008, he pled guilty to prostitution involving an underage girl, but he was not sent to a state prison. Instead, he was housed in the private wing, much more comfortable facility. And get this, he was largely allowed to come and go as he pleased. They called it work release. And after that came to an end, he resumed many of his associations, including with Bank of America. Bank of America, by the way, is in hot water for how it handled payments involving Jeffrey Epstein, who made extensive use of the company's banking services. The New York Times reported in December, the Bank of America filed 2 suspicious activity reports with law enforcement concerning Epstein.
Uh-oh.
The problem? Those reports weren't filed until years after the transfers took place and months after Epstein had already died.
Oh.
Suspicious. The American people have suffered a profound collapse in trust regarding elite institutions. One way the Trump administration can help to restore the citizenry's faith in government, in public service, in law enforcement, in national security, in the very structures of our society, is for more declassification of state secrets. Regarding Jeffrey Epstein, we want to know everything the government knows, no matter how damning it is, and no matter how embarrassing it may be for those in power.
Well, I think it's hard to argue with that, Robbie. I don't think that anyone really disputes that there should be more disclosure around Jeffrey Epstein. I think that the secrecy around him obviously engenders suspicion.
All right.
Of course, if
the
things
idea
were
there,
disclosed,
what they're
we have
talking
to point
about.
out.
Let me see if there's anything else going on. There will be a news conference later on today. Trump will be speaking in a joint House session. So he will be talking to both, looks like both some members of the House. Let me actually show them, see if I can share this. It'll make a little bit more sense. We'll read it together on the live. So Trump will be live later. President Trump addresses joint session of Congress. So I'm curious to see what that is all about. The House and the Senate, I'm assuming. In a couple minutes here. Will Kane show, will we ever see the JFK and Epstein files? Deep State fights back on Doge. So definitely want to check that out. And then there's supposed to be a press secretary is supposed to be speaking here in a couple minutes too. So yeah, it looks like they're waiting for that. That's supposed to happen at 9 a.m. That may get pushed back a little bit. You just never know. So those are just some of the things that are happening right now. And then, of course, don't forget, if I can find it, don't forget that Dark Docs will be again live tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific time on the Sacred Owls channel. Where is it? If I can find it. You never find it when you're looking for it, of course. So weird. I don't know what that's about. Look at my subscriptions. Possibly. I just had it too. I just had it up, of course. I'm going to find it. If you have not joined us there, come on in and join us. See. There it is, Sacred Owls. Hidden here. So this is the Sacred Owls channel, and I do hope everyone will join us tonight here at 5 p.m. I'll be in the chat, be in the live chat. That's Sacred Owls. I'll put that in the chat here too, in the description as well. And we'll have another great show tonight. Not exactly sure what the topic will be, but it's always good. Monday through Thursday, right here at Sacred Owls on YouTube. So make sure you find and follow them. And let's get that up to 500 subscribers is what we are gearing towards. And we're almost there. So hope everybody checks that out. Also check out darkdocs.com, darkdocs.me, darkdocs.me. And you can go and be a part of the Dark Docs Network. A lot of things that are covering, a lot of good stuff happening there. And I just want to say, in the end, I may be back later here, maybe live a little bit later, but for now, I am going to go make some more coffee. God bless you all. Remember, Jesus Christ loves you, and so do I, my friends. Stay blessed.